Hello my friends, it's Lisa, and today I thought we could sit down and chat about some of my reading plans for the rest of the year. So as we are officially into September, we're kind of in that final stretch of the year. I thought today I could answer some of the end of the year book tag questions, as well as chat through my TBR for the end of the year. I definitely have a lot of things I want to read, and knowing me, I'll put things on this TBR and then read completely different things, but it's nice to have some place to start. It's nice to have some goals, I guess. And I have done the end of the year book tag before. I don't know if I did it in 2020, but I believe I did it last year and in 2019. So if you want to go watch those, I'll have them linked below. And I also have the original creator of the tag linked below as well. But I thought we could start off answering those questions and then we can chat about all of my reading plans for the end of the year. So let's just get into the tag. So the first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? So other than the books that I'm currently reading and actively making progress in, there are a couple of books that I've started that I do need to finish. So one of the books, I think I don't even know when I started this, probably May, June? I don't know. It could have been earlier than that. But I started Fire by Kristin Cashore. This is the second book in the Graceling Realm series. And in this series, you follow different Gracelings who are these people who have these different abilities, these different powers, and each book in the series is following a different character. And I read Graceling earlier this year, really enjoyed it, wanted to continue on with the series, but I picked this up kind of at a bad time. When I picked this up, I was kind of in the middle of filming a bunch of themed reading vlogs, and the day after I started this, a bunch of holds on Libby came in, so I literally read the prologue. I got to page 16 and I haven't picked it up since. I haven't continued on, but I definitely want to read this. I would love to read the rest of the series this year, but I at least want to pick up this book and actually finish it. And then a similar situation, but this book I only started at the beginning of August, so it hasn't been that long, but I did start Emma by Jane Austen at the, I think, first week of August, and once again, I read the first chapter. I'm on page 7, and I just have not picked it up and continued on with it. But I definitely want to read this. This is on my 5-star predictions for this year. This is going to be my next 5-star predictions vlog, so definitely need to pick this up and actually make progress in it, but definitely need to finish this before the end of the year as well. So yeah, both Emma and Fire are books I read the first chapters of, didn't continue on, but for sure want to finish before the end of the year and actually read. The next question is, do you have an autumnal? That word always gives me trouble. Autumnal. Yeah. Do you have an I can't say this word. The next question is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? So I feel like I don't have any specific books I tend to reread around this time of year, but I feel like just in general, the fall time and winter as well just make me want to pick up all of the fantasy books, which is actually very exciting for me because this year I don't think I've been in the biggest fantasy mood. I've read a lot of romance and contemporary books this year, which is just very strange and very different for me, but I definitely have been wanting to get back into reading more fantasy books. So just in general, I just want to be picking up more books in the fantasy genre kind of in these next coming months. But also at the end of August and beginning of September, I ended up doing a reread of The Diviners by Libba Bray. I want to be kind of making progress and finishing this series, so I decided to reread the first book, and it was the perfect book to transition into kind of the end of summer into September. Even though most of September is technically still summer, it just feels like September is the start of the fall season. This was just the perfect book to pick up around this time of year, and I would like to read the rest of the series as well because there's characters that have magical abilities. In this particular book, there's a murder mystery happening, and it may be at the hands of supernatural forces. And I don't know if that's going to be the case for all of the books going forward, but there's just a lot of spooky elements that just feel like they need to be read around this time of year. So yeah, this was just the perfect book to pick up to get me kind of into the fall autumn vibes. Another book that I have not read yet and I would love to read in the fall time, ideally I'd like to read it in September this month, we'll see, but that's Babel by R.F. Kuang. I just feel like this is a book that would be perfect to read around this time of year and transition into autumn time. I know that there is magic and it's dark academia, and it just feels like the type of thing that should be read around this time of year. So I'm hoping that I can also pick this up and it will help me get into the kind of autumn fall mindset. I'm kind of already there. I'm in a sweater right now and it's not cold enough to be wearing the sweater, but I'm just forcing fall to happen. But I just feel like this would also be a great book to read around this time of year to get into the fall spirit. So hopefully I can pick this up soon. but I at least want to read it in the next coming months. The next question is there a new release you're still waiting for? So yes, of course there is. So I'm very excited for the release of Cursed by Marissa Meyer. I think this is coming out November 8th, but I'm really excited. It's the sequel to Gilded, which I read last year and really enjoyed. So of course I'm excited to get to the sequel. I'm also super excited because there's a new Holly Jackson book coming out this year called 5 Survive. Holly Jackson wrote the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, which I really loved. I thought was so much fun and so well done. And this book, I don't even really know what it is. I just saw that Holly Jackson was coming out with a new book and I was like, okay, sold. So it sounds like it's about a group of friends who are traveling in an RV for the beach for spring break, and then out of nowhere their RV breaks down, and there's also someone with a sniper trying to take them out. And so they're trying to figure out which of the friends is kind of the target for this, and they're trying to kind of get some help. And it says not everyone will survive the night. And I don't know, Holly Jackson, I'm very excited to read something new from her. I'm hoping it's as good as the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. But yeah, apparently that's coming out December 8th of this year. I know sometimes with like her other series, they were releasing in the UK before the US, so I don't actually know if that will release here at the same time. I think it will. I hope it will because I'm very excited about it. And also Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn is coming out later this year. I think it might be coming out in November as well. Yeah, that's also coming out November 8th, so the same day as Cursed. But I feel like seeing people getting ARC copies of Bloodmarked has made me more excited for that book's release, because I liked Legendborn, but I definitely don't love it as much as a lot of other people do. But I'm still excited to continue on with the series. I feel like it's setting up a lot of really great things. Like, I feel like there's a lot of potential with that series, so I am excited for Bloodmarked as well. Okay, so the next question is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? And like I said, we're going to be going over a lot more than 3 books. We're going to go over a whole TBR that I have for the end of the year, a lot of books that I want to read before the end of the year, so we'll get to that in a moment. But the next question is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? I don't think there's anything, I mean, who knows? You never know what could happen, but I don't think there's going to be anything that could overtake my favorites of the year. Like, I feel pretty solid with my favorite books of the year so far. But I mean, who knows? We still have 4 months left. I really don't know what could end up happening, but I think if there were to be books that could potentially get up there and become some of my favorite books of the year, maybe Cursed by Marissa Meyer, because I just love everything that woman writes. Also, maybe Babel if I do end up reading it, hopefully by the end of the year. This could potentially get up there. I feel like if I do read it, it will at least make my favorite books of the year list, but I feel like it could also make it to like the top of the list, so we'll just have to see. But yeah, other than that, I really don't know. I know of like the 2 top books of the year for me so far, so I don't know if anything is gonna surpass them, but we will see. Okay, and the last question for the end of the year book tag is, have you already started making reading plans for next year, for 2023? And yes and no. There are, of course, some anticipated releases that I have for next year that I'm excited for, and specifically Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare is coming out January 31st, I think. I think it's the last day of January, and I'm so excited for that book to be released. That book's release date has been pushed back a few different times, so I'm just so excited to finally read it, and I will be doing a dedicated vlog for that as well. I've done that with the rest of the books in that series, so I'm just really excited. And if there's anyone who could potentially be watching this that could have the power to give me an arc of Chain of Thorns, I am begging you, please. But if I don't get an arc, it's okay. I've already got it pre-ordered, so I will be sitting down and reading it as soon as it's in my hands. But other than that, we're also going to be continuing the Shadowhunters read-along next year. Me, Darian, and Casey have been making our way through all of the Shadowhunter books in publication order. So next year, I think we're going to be going until August. I think that's when we're going to be reading Chain of Thorns. So we still have a full year at this point of doing the Shadowhunters read-along, so that will be really fun to continue in the new year. And other than Shadowhunter books, I do have some like videos and stuff planned for next year and videos that I would like to do, so in that aspect I do have some reading plans, I guess. But I don't know, I don't really have anything too specific that I want to read next year. But if you have any videos or themed vlogs or anything that you would like to see from me, any book books you'd like me to read for any certain vlogs, definitely let me know. I know it's a bit early maybe to be planning videos and stuff for next year, but if you have any ideas, I'd love to hear them. So those were all of the end of the year book tag questions. So now we can get into my TBR for the end of the year. These are going to be the books that I'm going to prioritize over the next few months, and hopefully I can read most of them, but we'll see. I definitely am more of a mood reader, so it's also very likely that I'll make this list and then completely ignore it, but sometimes it's nice to have somewhat of a plan. So I definitely have some books that I've already kind of mentioned in this video, like Fire by Kristin Cashore. I think just the entire Graceling series. I did bring over Graceling as well. I read this earlier this year and would love to finish Fire. I'd love to read the whole series. I do have Bitter Blue and Winterkeep on my shelf behind me as well, and there's also going to be a 5th book in this series. I think that's coming out in November, so it would be like the ideal perfect scenario where I read this entire series this year and finish all of the books in the series, including the new one this year, but I have a feeling that's probably not going to happen, just knowing myself, so bare minimum, I would at least like to read and finish Fire. I also mentioned Emma by Jane Austen, another book that I have started and yet to finish, but this is going to be like probably read pretty soon because it's going to be in my next 5-star predictions vlog, so definitely will be finishing this before the end of the year. And speaking of 5-star predictions, the final 2 books on that list I definitely am going to read this year. So one of them is Cursed by Marissa Meyer and the other is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. That's going to be the last vlog in my 5-star predictions series, I guess, and it's going to be quite the finale because both of these books I'm very excited about and very nervous to read. Cursed because it's Marissa Meyer and I tend to just love everything that she writes, but like, what if this is the one I really don't like? And The Night Circus, I'm just incredibly intimidated by this book because it's been on my TBR for so long. I have wanted to read this book before I even knew what BookTube was. I think I saw this in a BuzzFeed article and that's how I found out about it, and that was probably like 2013, 2014. So it's been a long time that I've wanted to read this book. So I'm very nervous to pick it up, but I'm just gonna kind of wait for the mood and the right timing to strike me. Not that there's gonna be like the perfect time, I think, to pick up this book, but I definitely want to be in the right mood to pick this up so I can have the best chance of success. So yeah, the rest of my 5-star predictions for this year, Emma, Cursed, and The Night Circus are definitely going to be priorities for the rest of the year. And speaking of Cursed, I will probably do a reread of Gilded before that book comes out as well. I also have mentioned Babel by R.F. Kuang a few times in this video and would love to pick this up over the next couple months as well. I just feel like fall is the time to read this. Any other time would just be incorrect. I also did mention that I did a reread of The Diviners by Libba Bray recently, and I am currently reading the second book, Layer of Dreams. So I would love to continue on reading this series. I do feel like this is the perfect time of year to pick up these books and this series. So I'm hoping that I can also finish this series this year. So as I was saying earlier, I do feel like fall especially is the time for fantasy. Fall and winter, I just feel like I gravitate more towards reading fantasy books. So I do have a few standalone fantasy books I would maybe like to try and pick up before the end of the year. A couple of those standalone fantasies being Beyond the Black Door and In the Ravenous Dark, both by A.M. Strickland. I am so excited to read both of these books. They've both kind of been calling to me recently, so I feel like when I get into a fantasy mood, these might be the first ones I pick up. So in Beyond the Black Door, you're following a character who can journey into other people's souls while they sleep. And there also is this black door that she has been told not to go into, and of course in this book she does. And that's kind of all I want to know before going into this book. And In the Ravenous Dark is about a character who I believe has these like magical abilities that she tries to keep hidden, but then one day they do get seen and she ends up being like bound to this undead guard. I think there's going to be a lot of like political intrigue in this. I don't know, it just sounds very much up my alley. I'm very excited to read this too because I know Darian loves this book and it means a lot to her, but this one also just sounds like it's going to be like my cup of tea. So both of these, very excited about both of them. So I'm hoping that I can at least read one of them this fall. Also some more standalone fantasies. Margaret Rogerson's books are on Kindle Unlimited, so Sorcery of Thorns and Enchantment of Ravens and Vespertine. Is that what her newest one is called? But all of those books are on Kindle Unlimited, and I have wanted to read one of Margaret Rogerson's books for a very, very long time, and her books just scream fall and winter to me, so I feel like now is the time of year to read them. So I'm hoping that I can pick up at least one of them before the end of the year. I know Hannah from A Clockwork Reader read Sorcery of Thorns this year and has loved it, and I feel like me and Hannah, when it comes to fantasy, we tend to be on the same level. We feel the same way, is what I'm trying to say, about a lot of fantasy books. So I feel like if she loved it, there's a good chance I'm going to love it. So that might be the one I read, but just in general, Margaret Rogerson's standalone fantasies are on my TBR, and I would love to read before the end of the year. Obviously, how many times am I going to say end of the year in this video? I'm so sorry. I just feel like as I haven't been reading a ton of fantasy this year, reading some standalone fantasies as well as some fantasy books and series I've already started might be the best way to kind of get me back into the fantasy mindset. So I do have a few other fantasy series that I'd maybe like to make progress in or finish this year. So a series I think I could finish this year is the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. I read The Cruel Prince a few months ago. I think it was like May or June that I read that, so I would like to finish that series as well. I feel like that's pretty doable considering the books in that series aren't very long, so I would love to maybe pick that up and finish that. I also didn't grab the book that I wanted to talk about. Please hold. Our Violin Ends by Chloe Gong. I would love to finish this duology this year as well. I think I read These Violent Delights around this time last year, and I don't know if this is just a me thing, but sometimes when I read like the first book in a series around a specific time of year, I want to read the next book in the series around the same time of year. Like if I read the first book in a series in the fall, I feel like I need to read the second one in the fall. It's just what makes sense in my brain. So yeah, I would love to pick this up, and also it would complete that duology, be completing a series. I have started so many series over the past few years, and I definitely want to be prioritizing finishing a lot of the ones that I've already started. And this duology is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in the 1920s in Shanghai, and Romeo and Juliet are part of these like rival gangs, but they have to kind of work together and come together to solve these weird murders that are happening to people on both sides, in both gangs. So it's kind of something that is affecting both of them, and they come together to try and figure out what is happening, and this is the sequel. Don't really know what's going to be going on in this one, but I'm excited to find out. Hopefully I like it. I'm very nervous about it, but I'm excited to pick it up anyway. Okay, the next book is not a fantasy, but it is a part of a series that I would like to make progress in this year, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. So I read this first book in the Truly Devious series, I think it might have been 2 years ago now. You have to forgive me. I think we all get 2020 and 2021 confused. But in this book, you're following Stevie, who attends this school that is for like the brightest kids, and they all have a very specific thing that they're very knowledgeable about, and Stevie is kind of into true crime and is able to solve these different mysteries that have happened. And at this school back in I think the 1930s, the owner, his wife and daughter go missing, and no one's been able to solve this mystery. So Stevie goes to the school with the intent of solving this mystery that happened back in the 30s, but in the current day, there's also some other mysteries kind of happening that Stevie decides to solve as well. And I would like to continue on with this series. I think this is the type of series I could marathon in like a week in October, get in the spooky vibes, read some murder mysteries, and just kind of marathon the whole thing. So I would like to pick this up as well, especially because like I liked this book, but I didn't love it. And I feel like as time goes on, I'm going to have less and less interest in continuing on with this series. So I feel like while I still have somewhat of an interest, I should try and give it a shot and continue on before I completely lose interest. So as you can see, there is a lot of fantasy on this TBR for the last few months of the year. We will see how many of them actually get read, but I figured there's a good likely chance I'm going to want to pick up some romances throughout the rest of the year as well. So one that I would like to read is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is Emily Henry's newest adult romance book, and I've read both Beach Read and People You Meet on Vacation this year, so I figured I might want to just be completely caught up on her books by the end of the year. I do like knowing that there's still an Emily Henry book waiting for me and that I'm not caught up and have to wait like everybody else, but I also have really enjoyed her books, so I might want to read this. I am interested to see how I end up feeling about it. I feel like I'm not going to like it more than doing Beach Read because I love Beach Read so much, and just like someone mentioning that book makes me start to cry. But I feel like there's a pretty good chance that I'm gonna like this more than People We Meet on Vacation, which has me very excited. I cannot wait to pick this up and probably have yet another mental breakdown because of Emily Henry. Woohoo! But those are all of the books that I have on my TBR for the end of the year. It's definitely very ambitious, and it's also very likely I will get distracted by other books on my TBR, books on my Kindle, or just like library books, but I think it will be helpful to kind of have this list to kind of reference when choosing my next read over the next few months. I'm also very excited about all of these books, so I'm hoping that I can read most of these books by the end of the year. So let me know down below in the comments if you have any answers to the questions from the end of the year book tag. I'd love to hear them, or if you have any books that you want to prioritize and try and read before the end of the year, I'd love to hear that as well, and we can help motivate each other to read all the things we want to before the end of the year. But I think that's going to be it for this video, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!